former U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker, and I want to talk about Ukraine, Mr. Ambassador. It seems to me that Russia is winning by not losing. Looks like a stalemate. How do we break that stalemate?
Well, a couple things. First off, I think Ukraine is winning by surviving. So Russia's effort here was to overthrow the Ukrainian government, eliminate Ukraine as a country and a people, and they've utterly failed to do that. Now they're fighting to take territory in the east. They are succeeding at taking some of that territory and bringing a brutal fight to the Ukrainians. What the Ukrainians need are better, longer-range artillery systems. They need missile defense systems to protect cities, such as we saw that attack on the shopping center just yesterday, where the Russians bombed a shopping center where 1,000 people were. And then Ukraine needs time, because the Russians are putting everything they've got into this now, and they're going to exhaust themselves in a few months. Ukraine needs time to regroup and then go on the counteroffensive to retake some of the territory. So it's far too early to say that Russia's winning or can win here. And I think in the long run, Ukraine is the victor here in the sense that it survives as a sovereign, independent European democracy.
What does the Biden administration want here? What do Biden and the Europeans want? Some kind of settlement with troops on the ground in place, peace talks fairly soon? Is that what they're geared towards?
Well, I think there's some differences here, and we'll hear about this in the coming weeks. The Ukrainians, of course, want the Russian forces out of their territory completely. The Biden administration is giving support to that Ukrainian view, but you hear from several European leaders that this is just going to be too long and too bloody, and the Ukrainians need to start thinking about negotiating a surrender of some of their territory to Russia. The Ukrainians are not willing to do that now. And so there's a bit of difference about whether and when negotiations can produce anything. And so where I think the unity stands right now is continuing to give Ukraine both the financial and the military support it needs to keep fighting.
Mr. Ambassador, NATO is going to increase the number of high readiness forces. They're going to have a force of 300,000, I believe it is. That sounds like an escalation on the frontier. What say you?
Well, I think that it's quite the opposite. It's a response to Russia's aggression in Ukraine. 4 months ago, no one was talking about taking these NATO response forces and beefing them up this much to 300,000. But because of what we've seen in Ukraine, Russia's unprovoked aggression, seizing territory, indiscriminate bombing of civilian centers, war crimes, people in NATO are realizing that it's not really safe out there anymore. We've got to be ready to protect ourselves and ideally to deter Russia from ever launching attacks like that against NATO states. So that's the reason to put more forces on the table to try to prevent Russia or change the calculation that Russia would know it's just too costly to try to attack NATO.
Do you get the impression that the American public is losing interest? Ukraine is no longer at the top of the news cycle.
I think there is a bit of fatigue that, we've heard the stories from Ukraine over 4 months now. We kind of know the picture there. Other things creep into the headlines, whether it's guns or abortion, and it drifts off the front pages. But for Ukrainians, they are there and they're fighting every day. This is still existential for them.
But are we going to give them the weapons they need?
I think that we have done better over time. We never gave them enough, early enough, to really be decisive. I think we are on a track now to get them a lot of what they need, these longer-range artillery systems, missile defenses, for example, anti-ship systems. The Ukrainians are willing to fight, and they're just asking us to help them with the arms.
Thank you for being with us, Kurt Volker, Mr. Ambassador. We always appreciate it. See you again soon. Yes, sir.